Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. I'm excited. I'm always excited because I believe if you start your day off with a bunch of BS and from that moment on, you're going all the way down. And today is a beautiful show. I am blessed. No, I'm overwhelmed. I'm excited for this beautiful young lady that's going to grace us with her presence. You've probably seen her on Peacock, a couple other movies, which we'll talk about. But more importantly, today, we're going to talk about the second part of our lives. I know what you're saying, Andre. What the hell are you talking about? We all have a first part of our life, and then we have that second part. And both should be just as important, if not better, going into the second phase. And today, actress Julie Stevens is going to share with us her journey from start to the second half and to the finish line. Welcome to the show, Julie. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I've been looking forward to this.
Let's get right down to it. Let's start with the birth. The creation of Julie. What was that like for you? Because you are an award-winning actress and still doing your stuff, but take the viewers through the childhood of your life.
Oh, gosh. Well, I was born in Everett, Washington, so just outside of Seattle, Pacific Northwest, beautiful part of the country. And just kind of your average, middle class upbringing. I have an older brother. My mom and dad were awesome. Both worked. My mom was in HR for many years. My dad was a business owner. We had a great childhood. We used to go hiking and camping. We spent a lot of time outdoors. I grew up playing every sport under the sun, soccer, basketball, softball, volleyball, tennis, racquetball, all of it. I love it. I'm very competitive in ping pong, by the way. So if you ever want to take me on, I'm ready. It was great. And I started to dance as a teenager. So I ended up being in a dance group with my mom and dad, which was amazing. It was a great place to grow up. And I loved my school career, my junior high school career. I still have a lot of friends. I still have childhood friends, a group of us that have known each other since we were about 10 years old. And we all get together and still have really strong connections. So, but I knew very early on that I was going to be a performer. I didn't know what that looked like. I always laugh because, this is the 70s, Andre. So teachers would give you these little forms to fill out and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'd give you like 3 options. And for the women, it was always mom, nurse, or teacher. Those were your options. Right. And I remember drawing an extra line and I put model because I thought, I'm not really crazy about any of those options right now. Right. I'm 10. Those just don't speak to me. So I wrote in model, and I think I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. And I think I've always known that I would be in the performing arts somehow.
What were some of the indications that made you so strong hold on the performing arts? I mean, was your mom and dad also doing this as a side venture or hobby?
Well, my mom, she cut a record when she was 18. She had a song on the radio, so she loved to sing and dance. She never did it on a professional level, but she probably could have had she had the resources and things like that. My dad was an avid photographer, and we had a dark room in our house, actually, in the garage. I remember I can still smell the chemicals. We'd go in the dark room and develop photos and hang them. I loved that. And so there was definitely creativity in the house. We always had music on. That was something that was on in the house all the time. So there were bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really have anybody I have some musicians in the family, some guitar players and things like that, but nobody really in the performing arts that was close to me. I think for me, it was probably just innate. I think it chose me just as much as I chose it. And it was just, I just knew, it was, I always believe in sort of God-given talents and gifts. And I feel like he doesn't give you those desires and passions unless he intends for you to use them. And so I think it was just something within me that I knew, again, I have no idea how this is going to play out, but I know that's the direction I need to go.
Were you inspired by movies or television? And if so, who were some of your favorite actors and actresses?
Oh my gosh, I've always loved old movies. In fact, I kind of revisit those, Gregory Peck and Montgomery Clift. I had crushes on all of these older stars. Katharine Hepburn. I loved the acting style. I loved how the women had so much gumption, and, they just were, I don't know, something about them, the Lauren Bacalls of the world. But then I will say one of the movies that really has always stuck with me is A Chorus Line with Roy Scheider. It's a classic, and it's about auditioning in New York for the chorus line and being a dancer and how hard the life is. And very, very Bob Fosse. It's based on Bob Fosse's life, who was a major choreographer in the jazz world and beyond. And so I think when I saw that as a teenager, I just thought, I want that chaos. I want that auditioning and that.
You said you want that chaos?
Oh my God. What was that?
You said you want that chaos?
I wanted that chaos. It's a good chaos. It's that focus, and that, you're going up against 100 other people or more, and you've got to bring your best. And so I think I loved the idea of what that could look like, where you've got all these people. And I think it raises your level as well. When you're around so many good people, and it doesn't matter what you do in life, I think that's across the board. If you surround yourself with people who are better than you, you have to up your game.
And plus, you was an athlete,
so that was a big.
So you had that competitive nature going into it. But how much of that movie actually resonated to be your life? Like, how much of that movie was actually your life in reality moving forward?
Well, I actually went on to work for Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines as a cruise staff member and dancer. So, and then I had been in that dance group with my mom and dad for a while. And then we took that group and made it into a smaller group. And I ended up traveling around with this smaller group called Applause. And we performed at resorts and things like that. And so I had always danced. But then when I worked on board Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, it was kind of a full circle moment. It was a different type of show, but it was very much jazz and Broadway, and it kind of brought it full circle for sure. And just kind of that world of auditioning and this is before social media. I mean, right. I had to send in my resume old school, Andre, lick the envelope and send it to Miami to the Royal Caribbean corporate office and say, please hire me. And when they didn't, you try and call them and say, did you get my resume and my headshot? This is old school. Right, so, right.
Mm-hmm. When did your big break actually happen for you?
Still waiting on that.
No, don't even go there. Look, you on Peacock. We'll talk about that in a minute. You had to get some breaks in order for you to even get to that level on Peacock. But when did you consider your first major opportunity then? Not break. What was your first major opportunity to that catapult you to the next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny. I've had a few, and they're very far apart. So maybe when I was hired to work for Royal Caribbean, because I got to travel a lot, I was performing, I was around a bunch of people, I was on stage. That was huge. Mm-hmm. And then I did that for about 7 years, from 93 to 2000. And then I moved to LA right after that to pursue acting. And I didn't have any big breaks that first time around, but I studied with a lot of really big name coaches. And so I was kind of in this lull for a while. And honestly, Andre, it was when we moved to London in 2019, and I got to work with John Carpenter on this Peacock show. And talk about hanging in there and persistence, because that we're talking from when I was in my 20s to now when I'm in my back then late 40s. So there's, and I try to enjoy the journey. I try not to look at it like, oh, that's a big thing. Thank goodness that happened.
Right.
I try to enjoy all the little things that got me there. But I would say in my late 40s, when I got the Peacock show, that was a big deal.
What were you missing? Like, how did you develop a blueprint to even get you in front of John Carpenter? Like, what was your blueprint to get there? Because you're doing entertainment on a cruise ship. And I'm a firm believer, you never know who's going to be on a cruise ship. You might run into somebody, but clearly you wanted to catapult your career. How did you wind up putting together the recipe to get in front of John Carpenter?
Persistence and hard work. And I always just say, I just keep showing up. Because had I had this audition for John Carpenter and not been prepared, it could have gone a completely different way. So the blueprint, it's never a straight line. It looks like a big bowl of spaghetti, really, especially when you're in the performing arts. But you're right. You never know who's watching you, who's seeing your tape. Maybe you're not right for this part, but somebody, and that's happened to me, somebody has seen my tape and said, hey, I remember you didn't get that, but we want you to come audition for this. And just doing the work, you have to, I was always taking classes. I was always surrounding myself with other actors and performers. I just made sure that even if I wasn't working, I was working. So if that answers your question, I think it was just constantly, I wanted to see the bigger picture. And I always knew somehow this is going to work out. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know who's going to connect with me, but I need to make sure that I'm prepared at all times as much as I can be, so that when that John Carpenter call comes, I'm there going, yes, I can do this. I can do this.
What were you lagging in? Because you went from dancing. Did you have any acting skills prior to coming out for the dance floor?
Yes, I would say so, because your focus is, on this thing for a while. And obviously I'm out at sea, so acting took a back seat for me for a while. Right. And then when I was in Seattle, Seattle's a great city for artists, but it's more small theater. I did a lot of corporate commercial. There wasn't a big film and television scene at the time. And so I think a lack of maybe opportunity too. I just didn't know where to turn. I didn't have anybody in the industry to really help me. You do kind of feel like you're flailing sometimes, because you're kind of out there on a limb on your own. And
out there, but when you went out,
go ahead.
Didn't mean to cut you off, but when you went out there, who recommended that you relocate? Because I know it's about opportunities, and you said that there was not a lot of opportunities in Seattle area. What were the 3 other areas that you was deciding to move in that would have allowed you at least the exposure and the opportunities? Because everybody thinks everything is always in LA, but was that the same thing for you? Did they offer you any other places that might be like Atlanta? Atlanta's up and coming, but why?
Right. No, you're right. And at that time, I was just coming off a cruise ship. So this is late 90s. LA and New York were still kind of the 2 places to be. If you're musical theater, you go to New York. If you want to do film and television, you go to Los Angeles, because like you said, Atlanta is big now. Vegas is becoming, a great place to get in the industry, but they weren't at that time. And so you're kind of left with really one choice, because I'm not a singer. And so LA was the place. And that's why I ended up there in the early 2000s. I just packed everything in my car and drove down and didn't know anybody. And so, I just kind of went for it, because that was the only choice that I really knew of at the time.
How did you open a door in a city that you knew nobody? I mean, and being a female on top of that too. I mean, you're going to
And no money, no.
how did
No
you even how did you even open a door for yourself?
That's such a good question. I just one step at a time. I found an apartment for myself, which I just went to visit a couple weeks ago. It was so great to take a picture in front of this old apartment complex up in West Hollywood, but it's brought back so many memories for me. I loved it. And I got a job, bartending on Sunset Boulevard so that I could audition during the day. I just started sort of, again, old school mass email agencies. I found an agent, not a big agent by any means. I didn't have a huge resume at the time. Again, coming off of really just dance and some corporate video and commercials. And so I didn't even know where to turn, to be honest. I just kind of one step at a time, tried to reach out to people. And again, this is before social media. So you had to do everything on your own. This is old school.
And
hey, can you introduce me to
people don't know that. People don't know the and you can relate to this. I mean, I tell people all the time, you have no idea. I tell my kids, you have no idea of the world you live in. It was to market yourself at that time. You had to either be in a magazine, a newspaper. You had to be featured pretty regularly, because that wasn't the case. How did they brand you? You said you didn't have the acting resume. How did you wind up picking your agent? And after you met with your agent, how did they brand you to make you marketable? Because now that way people can understand how difficult it was to build a brand back then, where you didn't have social media, where you had to lick a stamp and hope that they got it. How did they brand you, and what was the things outside of the fact that you had very minimum acting skill? How do you brand you and get you out there in front for the people to look at?
Well, I think it helped. I'd gone to acting school. That before I had joined cruise ships, I had studied quite extensively Lee Strasberg method acting. It was kind of a big deal back then, and I had studied out of high school. And so at least I had this little bit of training on my resume. And then I had done, some commercials in corporate. And so that's all you can do. You can only start with what you have. Right. And so it's sort of just presenting this little measly resume and then the belief in yourself. And so they kind of marketed me just starting there. Again, it's hard to get into it if you don't have it, but how do you have it if they don't give you the chance? So sort of this vicious cycle that you're going through. And so I did more corporate and commercial, which is fine. It pays the bills. It's fun. I enjoy it, but I always knew I wanted to try and get into TV and film, but I wasn't there yet. I didn't have, the expertise or the, any of the jobs to back it up. So yeah, they just kind of marketed me where they could, even modeling and lifestyle and fitness stuff. I did a lot of that. So you're just starting somewhere, and everything you do, you put it on your resume, and it may look really sparse for a while, but every time you do something, you add something else to that and you make a new connection. And so they just kind of marketed me kind of how I thought they might, just, what skills I did have, and you just try and capitalize on those until you can do more.
When the opportunity did happen, what was that opportunity that kind of catapulted you? That's such a good question. I had moved back to Seattle from LA that first time and was working quite a bit in Seattle, but again, corporate and commercial. I think what really did it for me too was that when we moved to London in 2019, I did a play. I started doing some more film and television.
And it really sparked in me where I had started and what I had wanted in the very beginning. And I didn't have the opportunities back then for that. But all of a sudden, the light bulb came on. Wait a minute, this is what I went to school for. This was always my passion. And again, I love it all, but my baby is film and television. And I love that so much. I love getting into a character. I love having to do that research, and you have this collaboration with an entire crew and other actors, and you're really working on creating something together. So I think, again, working on the John Carpenter series and then this Netflix series Chaos with, amazing writers and actors and entire crew, those were big breaks for me, and also big light bulb moments that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And timing is everything. And it's okay if it happens later in life. You think I'm over the hill, or it should have happened in my 20s and 30s. I've been doing this for so long. You can't think that way. You never, ever know. If you told me a year ago that I would be on Peacock, on Netflix, and have a movie coming out on Great American Family next month, I would have thought you were absolutely insane. In my 40s and 50s, I've been doing this for 35 years, Andre. Well, come on, where is it? And then all of a sudden, boom, it all happens at once. And you just that's the ride, and you have to ride the ride, and you have to be okay with that. That it may not happen when you think it's going to, right, but just be ready when it does.
I tell people that all the time. The universe knows when it's going to happen. You just have to be prepared when it does happen. But yes, to hear your story, you hear this story of never giving up, and it would appear that there was never a moment of sadness in your life, but there was a moment of sadness when you lost your father at 58, and now you're happily married to a very successful government official. We won't go any deeper than that. Classified. but that is a fear factor for you. Tell me a little bit, tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Well, everybody has trials and tribulations, no matter how joyful we may seem on the outside. I think it's all how you kind of deal with those adversities that makes the difference. But it was definitely a dark time for a while. My dad, who I was very close to, it was just the four of us, my mom, dad, and my brother and I was very close to him. I always thought of him as a dreamer like me. He just had that easygoing, fun-loving, everybody loved my dad. And he was a dreamer, he just had that kind of the bigger picture. He was a business owner, so he kind of got that. And I think he got me, which, that's not always easy when you have an artist in the family. There's always people going, oh, geez, here we go. It's going to be a wild ride. Are you sure you don't want to be an accountant or, yeah. So, I'm sure I was kind of the black sheep, but I think both of my parents did, but I felt like we just had this beautiful father-daughter relationship. And so kind of out of the blue, he had a backache that just wouldn't go away. And he thought it was from shoveling snow and that he pulled his back out. Right. Well, finally going to the doctor, because back then too, you didn't go to the doctor unless you were sick. And he was really never sick. Great shape, worked out. Found out he had prostate cancer that had spread to the bone, and that's where the back issues were coming in. He was sore because it had already spread.
Oh, wow.
And so, gosh, he was 56 and a half, I think, when he was diagnosed, and a year and a half later, he passed. And I think I was just in denial, to be honest, because, your parents are your superheroes, and my dad was always so healthy. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand how this happened. And so I really think that probably for a while I thought, no, this isn't going to take him. I mean, he's going to live to be in his 90s and just, going out with his hair on fire. This is not who, Dick Stevens. He's not going out like that.
How do you overcome it and move forward? Because when he passed, I'm pretty sure he will want you to continue and not give up on your dreams. How do you move forward with that?
That's just it. That's exactly right. Because I feel like, and I'm an avid traveler. I traveled a lot as a single person. My husband and I love to travel. My dad was in the Air Force and lived in Germany and Frankfurt, and he loved Europe. He loved to travel. And so part of my joy and my passion for travel is knowing how much he would just get a kick out of that. He would have loved the fact that we were living in London for 4 years. He would have loved that. And so you're right. And I am a very spiritual person too. So I always feel like he's my guardian angel going, he knows what's happening. He knows what's going on down here. And I feel like that's my gift to him is living the fullest life that he didn't get to live. It was full up until he passed, but he lost a lot of years. And so it's sort of my responsibility to live that for him in his honor.
Now, your mother, is she still with us?
She is. Yeah, she is.
How does your mom and your brother deal with the fact that they have a superstar in the family that basically never gave up on herself, never gave up on individuals, but now in the second part of her life is doing everything that she manifested from the first part of journey of her life?
Oh, well, all I can say is I hope they're proud. I hope that's inspiring to them. I mean, I know they're proud, but, yeah, I mean, I think the more you can show them that you're not going to give up, the more they take you seriously too, don't they? It's one of those things where I'm sure they sat back there for a while and thought, again, oh, she's an artist. Let's see how this goes. But the more perseverance you show and focus, they can't help but to go, okay, she's serious. This isn't a hobby for her, or, this is serious and she's still with it. And so, yeah, I know they're proud and they're always watching what shows I'm in if they can. And, I always tell people come on, help promote.
Were there ever any, outside of the loss of your father, were there ever any moments of doubt that maybe you should have looked at the other options that the teacher gave you, nursing?
Yeah, that's right, Count.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Probably not, because people who are focused like you are, we seldom look at the other options because we're so focused on knowing that the possibility is there. It's more like, what do I need to do? What doors do I need to open? Which lane do I need to be in to make that happen? What's your take on that?
That's, 100%. I mean, you always have to sort of have, we call it the real job, a real job on the side, although I never liked that term because my real job to me was acting. You have to have a job on the side that pays your bills. I always just thought I never want anybody else to have to take care of me or to pay for this for me. Like if I'm going to have a life in the arts, which is very much this, that's fine. But I need to be able to take care of myself. I need to have a job that pays the bills. And then hopefully the job that pays the bills and the acting, and then all of a sudden you can even out. And then all of a sudden the acting takes over and you can either stop doing that other thing or less of it. And so, there's always been times where you think, please, God, tell me you didn't give me this passion for nothing. Like, you're killing me here. Like, I want this so badly. Please don't dangle a carrot if you have no intention of letting me catch it. Yeah. And, so you do have those conversations with yourself. But I think deep down, I always knew. And I did. I just always knew. And that's why I'm still here. I would have stopped this nonsense long ago. Right. Had I really felt like I can't, even if I felt like I could do it, but I just didn't want to deal with this anymore. And that happens to a lot of performing artists where it's hard. It's really hard. And so they just sort of drop out because they just don't want to deal with it anymore. Whether you call it rejection or the no's or just not getting work or whatever, it may be competition. And so they just drop out and do something else, but maybe they could have, I always say it's the last key that opens the door. You got to hang in there because you never, ever know when it's your time. And so for me, I don't think there was ever plan B. Right. Not really.
What are some of the notable characters that you've played over the course of your career so far? What are some of the most notable characters and what made those characters notable for you?
There was a short film that I did. There's a filmmaker in London, Lewis Finley. He's very, very talented. And he had asked me to to be in a film with him. He wrote it, directed it, and starred in it with me. And it's called Why Did You Tell Me? And it's about, as soon as I read the script, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so, I can relate to this. I want to play her. And the storyline is it's an older woman, myself, dating a younger man who was played by Lewis. And I've been married, divorced, raised 2 children, and now I have a very successful career. And I'm with this younger man who's never been married, doesn't have children. We have a lovely relationship. I find out on my 50th birthday that I'm pregnant.
Wow.
And so the story of how does this look? My character is, like I said, successful. She doesn't really want to think about having a family all over again. And he's very excited about it, and would like to have a child with me. And so the dynamic of what that looks like and the choices that this couple has to make, I really enjoyed playing her, very dramatic, very heartfelt piece. I loved that film a lot.
When you're getting scripts and you're getting into character, you said something, you can relate to that character. What are some of the characters that you couldn't relate to, but you still wind up doing the movie? And because you did do it, did you later have regrets that maybe you didn't put your all into that particular character?
Well, I think even this Peacock series, Suburban Screams, it's about the John Carpenter series. It's about this woman. My particular episode is about a woman who was stalked via phone and text messages by somebody that the police could never find. They never knew who did it. He harassed her, sent her very sexually explicit text messages, said he was going to kill her. I can't relate to that as far as that had never happened to me, but that's also my job as an actor I would say probably most scripts you're going to get, you may not be able to relate to them 100%, but you have to find yourself in there, somewhere that makes it relatable for you. And so, yes, this other film was a 50-year-old woman dating a younger man. And being pregnant. I couldn't necessarily relate to that specifically, but I understood what that decision might feel like. Right. And then with Suburban Scream, so far off from what I've ever experienced. But you can take things from your own life. Have I ever been really, maybe scared, or have I maybe dated somebody who was a little too controlling? Sure, we can all kind of pull things, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what makes it challenging, and that's what makes it exciting about being an actor, is that you're putting yourself and trying to embrace this person that isn't you, but you want to embody that and do it justice. So I love that. How did
John wind up picking you for this role? Because I'm pretty sure, like you said, there's competition out there, and I don't want you to give the names of the people that you had to go up against, but there was competition. What made you stand out in the eyes of John Carpenter for the new movie?
Well, you probably have to ask him about that. But I remember going into London for this audition, and I didn't know who was directing it, or I didn't know anything about John Carpenter being attached to it. It was just, hey, here, you get so little when you audition. They don't send you the full script. You get a few little lines or nothing at all, and then they give you the lines when you get there. So you kind of go in sometimes a little bit blind. You just, they need this age of woman, and you're just going in and going, okay, what do you need me to do? Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. That they gave me brief, instructions. You're in an office setting. Basically, you're scared to leave the office. And so you're talking with a coworker about maybe leaving with you. And I just remember auditioning. And then it was interesting because I got done with the audition and the casting director said, do you think maybe now you can do that with a New York accent? It was kind of an odd request because they hadn't sent that to me ahead of time. And I thought, well, I don't know. Okay, I'll try, but I didn't know what that was, why they were asking that until later. So I did my best, sort of a New York.
What is a New York accent?
Oh my God. Well, it come to find out this woman that this happened to is from Long Island. So it's very, yeah.
Very
so, but I didn't know that at the time. Yeah, right. I'm a West Coaster. We don't have an East Coast accent. Right. So that was definitely a challenge. But you're right. It was so interesting because I left the audition. You don't think anything of it. That's kind of what you do. You just put it in your back pocket and move on. I was probably a good 3 weeks later that my agent called and said, hey, you've got a callback. They want you to go back in and read for that. Remember that thriller? And I thought, then you have to even remember what you did. You're like, oh yeah, that was 10 auditions ago. Okay. So then they said, wait a minute. They don't want you to go in. The director actually just wants to have a Zoom call with you. So then they sent me the email with the Zoom call. And that's when I saw John Carpenter's name. And I thought, wait, the John Carpenter? I was, jumping up and down, screaming. Yeah, it was so great. And of course, then you're like, okay, keep it together. Just cool your jets. You don't have the part yet. And so it was like this, where all of a sudden, Zoom call, John Carpenter's face pops up, trying to be cool. And you just start chatting about the part. And I was blonde at the time. Okay. And so he said, hey, if you get this part, would you be willing to be brunette? Because the gal that, I'm portraying is dark hair. And I said, yes. And so we just had a lovely Zoom call. And then our second Zoom call, he thought I had the part. I didn't know I had the part.
Right.
It said, he finally said, wait, you have the part, right? And I said, no, nobody's told me. And he said, okay, I need to talk to some people because you need the script. You have the part. You are her. And so
did you wind up having, did you forget about the accent is my next part of that? Because they were saying you need to have the New York, Jersey type vocals. Did you have to do that as well?
Yes. So we had a couple Zoom calls ahead of time. He said, work on your Long Island accent. You don't need to sound exactly like her, but I want to hear something. So we had a couple Zoom calls. I read some script with it and he said, okay, I like it. It's subtle. You're definitely working on the right path, but I had to do it all I don't have the all that money to hire a dialect coach and work for 3 months. We were shooting very quickly within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so I just got on YouTube and just studied the heck out of a Long Island accent and did my best. That's all you can do. You're doing your best. And so, but it was definitely a challenge. Yeah, definitely a challenge.
Now, what was this without giving, because I want people to watch the series. It's a series, correct? On that, that's coming out on Peacock.
Yeah, it's on Peacock.
Okay. Where did you guys actually do the shoot? Did you have to go back to London to do the film the movie?
So we shot it. I was hired while we were still living in London in 2021, I think it was, or 2022. And we actually shot that in the Czech Republic. And so, it was all night shoots because it was a thriller. And so, we shot that in the Czech Republic, and it was my London agency that got me that gig.
What were you missing from this character that you mentioned that you had to go back and study how to speak Long Island, the vocals and so forth. But what else did you have to go back and hone your craft on to make this series the best John Carpenter thriller can be?
I just really had to try and embrace her journey because she also has her friends and coworkers that talk on the series, and they interview her as well. She went through such a journey. She ended up having the shakes, the tremors, because of all of the stress that this caused her.
Really?
So there were physical things that I, tried to adopt as much as I could. And then you see her as a fun loving woman with friends and family and a job and all these things. And you see her, the stress and the sleepless nights. And so they tried to do that physically with me, and it just kind of a gritty role. And you see her paranoia set in and the anxiety. And so trying to channel that as much as I could, and try and again, put yourself in this spot that if somebody were harassing you daily, I mean, hundreds of phone calls a day, text messages with your head cut off of a photo, what that would do to you and how your life would completely change, and be afraid to even go outside because who is it? You don't know. It's the guy at the grocery store or an ex, or is it a female? So yeah, that was that was definitely a challenge to sort of do her justice as well, because she was so brave to tell her story, and how I could, bring that.
Did you actually talk to her?
She sent me a lovely message. I didn't get to meet her because they filmed her part separate from mine, but she sent me the nicest message after she watched it, and was just very grateful that I played her. And I thought, wow, that's why I do what I do. That was amazing.
So she was point on spot where you captured her, every single aspect of what she was going through on camera, as far as I
tried to. Yeah. And, to get her blessing about it was huge. Definitely. Because it was her story.
Let's talk about another project that you did with Netflix. Tell me a little bit about the Netflix project that you did.
Yes, that was shot while we were when I was living in London as well. We lived there from 2019 to end of 2023. So we've just been in Southern California now a year, and that shot in Spain. And please watch it. It's on Chaos. It's on Netflix now. It's called Chaos. It's Kaos. Okay. And Jeff Goldblum plays Zeus.
I Jeff Goldblum. Oh my God.
Come on.
What's that like working with him? What's that like working with him?
I wish I knew, because we shot separate days. So I'm in scenes with him, the final cut, but I didn't get to meet him. And I'm just so sad about that, because I've just admired him and his personality. I just want to have a beer with him. Like, he seems like that kind of just funny, kind of, high energy guy, right?
Yeah.
He's your perfect Greek god. Yeah. It's a great show. Very, very well written and acted.
I like Greek mythology. So what's the concept of this? I love Greek mythology.
It's nuts. It's a wild ride. It's a modern take on it. And so it's definitely a dark comedy. There's some, political aspects to it, but it's funny, and it kind of brings back all of your history lessons. Like, okay, I remember reading about Prometheus and,
the fire.
Poseidon. And, yeah. But they're in the 80s, so they've got kind of all these modern day, like, oh, is that a wrinkle? And, they're in the track suits, and it's so funny. The satire is off the charts. And I play a news anchor in a couple of the episodes. So yeah, it was just a blast to be a part of this series. I would highly recommend it, even if I wasn't a part of it. It's amazing.
You've done so much, not only in the first part of your journey, but the second part of your journey, and you're still doing things. And I'm definitely blessed to have you come on and share this beautiful universal experience of manifestation at its highest, is what I call it. But what's the end game? What's the end game for you? I mean, I see more coming besides this. I see more. You know what I see? I'm seeing it. Yellowstone. I see it. You and
I, listen, let's put it out there. I watched you chat with Yolanda a lot, and I love her, and I love her whole take on manifestation too. And I fully believe in that you have to work for it and visualize it. But the brain is a powerful tool. And I say Yellowstone, I say NCIS. Yeah. I love The Rookie. Yes. All of the above. I'm ready for it.
If you had the opportunity to work with, Shelton on Yellowstone, what kind of character would you want to play? Now, I love his daughter. I love John Dutton's daughter. Oh my
gosh.
How can you not like her character?
She's amazing. I love her. Yeah. Beth. Yeah. She's great.
Like, what kind of character and role would you be comfortable with if they offered you a part on that series?
Oh man, that's a good question. Oh, I mean, let's make no mistake. I'd probably take anything they offered up. Yeah, I wouldn't be too picky on that. But I would love to be, I could see maybe popping it in as a detective or somebody in authority who's investigating that crazy family and kind of weaseling my way in there. And maybe you don't realize what I'm in there for. You know, it could be something where I'm kind of befriending the family or coming in with sort of a dual purpose. But the end game would be I'm absolutely trying to bring this family down.
Yeah, I like to see somebody that can challenge her, because I think they try to bring a female in to kind of like challenge her to an extent. You see it on every episode, but they can't seem to find that one female character that can really stand up to her and challenge her and be like, oh, wow, now this is what I want to see, because she pretty much dominates all the females on there. I've never seen a female on there yet that can kind of match up to her role. What's your take on it?
Well, I 100% agree. She's earned that role, man. She is very good at it. But I would be happy to stand up and take my place amongst the table and see how we could play that out. I think that would be great.
Well, I appreciate that. So, how can the viewers reach out to you, support you, and keep your career moving forward, going into the next part of your life?
Oh, I'd love to hear from anybody. You guys come support me. You can find me on really any of the social media. Julie Stevens on Instagram, Julie Stevens 88. I'm also a travel writer and photographer. So I've got a model traveler that's out there on Instagram and YouTube. If you look up Julie Stevens, I've got a website. They can look at my talent website, email me through there. Julie Stevens or a model traveler, you're going to find me.
Let's talk about the significant other. About him. I mean, here's a guy that basically has followed you all over through your career. What's that like? I got to give him his just.
He's amazing. We got married later in life, so he was already retired from the Navy, and so obviously I was kind of already established in this career. And we're such opposites as far as the way our brains work, but that's our we're the yin and yang to each other. And I've learned so much about his world, and he has learned so much about mine. He's my reader now, Andre. So when you do an audition and you have to record from home, they always want you to have a reader, which reads the opposite parts to your character. Right. And in the very beginning, it was, I'm sure, torturous for him. And now he's totally getting into it. I'm like, listen, tone it down. Okay, this is about me. I'm trying to get hired. You sound too good. Like, just tone that down in the background. So we laugh about it now. He's great.
Does he have the ability to be in a movie with you as your co-host?
Oh, I don't know if he would. I always laugh because he's in physical security. So I say he's going to get my security team together. I think he's more of the wind beneath my wings. He's very good looking. He could certainly do it. I just don't think that would be his cup of tea. He's kind of the guy behind the scenes, rooting me on, supporting me, and always there for me. But if you put him in front of a camera lens, I don't think he would enjoy that as much as I do.
Julie, before we wrap up again, tell the viewers the name of the movies that you're going to be in and how they can find them. I know one's on Peacock, one on Netflix. Give the viewers those information one more time. Yeah,
so on Peacock, it's John Carpenter's Suburban Screams. On Netflix, it's called Chaos, Kaos. And then next month, on November 9th, I have a lovely holiday film coming out on Great American Family, and that's called A Royal Christmas Ballet. So that'll be, it's just a feel-good story, something very different than what I've done with the other thrillers and, dramatic pieces. So few things out there that you can see me on. So I appreciate this so much, Andre, more than I can say. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
I appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you watch all of these beautiful series that's going to be on both Peacock and Netflix. Once again, Julie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.